when you go over to the UK, where do you stay? There's youth hostels on the very, very budget end.
Yeah.
There's bed and breakfasts, and there's differing levels and different types of scenarios of bed and breakfast. And there's just normal hotels. So if you're not doing the guided tour thing, because they will probably say, okay, this day we're staying in this hotel, that day that hotel. So if you're doing it on your own, where do you stay?
It's going to depend again on the kind of experience you're looking for. In my experience, a mixture is actually kind of best. If you're in an urban setting, you may decide that you want to do a hotel. There are B&Bs that operate in urban environments as well as in countrified environments, but it feels nicer. It feels more like that homey experience that goes with the landscape if you do a B&B out in the countryside. Whereas in the city, you may want some of the amenities of a hotel in terms of just the basic amenities, the level of privacy you get, the ease of coming and going, and of course the location of the hotel may be important to you also, whether you want it near a railhead, whether you want it near to the walking distance of historic sites you're interested in, things like that. When we went to England, my wife and I, we actually split our trip up in that we did a self-drive around southern England, but we ended it in London and stayed in a hotel for the last 3 or 4 days that we were there in London for a more concentrated experience there, and it was good to have that hotel as a base camp. We probably could have found a B&B that would do the same thing, but hotels just feel more efficient in a couple of ways, I suppose you could say.
Yeah, more private. When Kelly and I went to Scotland the one time, we stayed in a B&B in Edinburgh, and it was a little odd. I've never stayed in a B&B before, so the one issue with us in a B&B was it was kind of, the people were very nice, but we were renting out the spare bedroom and spare bathroom. So when we got there, or before we got there, they called and said, okay, well, when are you going to get here? We need to make sure that we're home when you arrive. What time do you want breakfast? We kind of talked about that kind of stuff. What time are you coming home tonight? Because, we'll make sure the door's unlocked for you. But, we go to bed around this time if you're going to be in after that. We had to kind of navigate that. So in an odd way, in my, mid-30s or early 30s, I kind of felt like, okay, am I going on vacation and staying with my mom? It was a little odd in that sense. For the most part, we are the travel ourselves, do it ourselves kind of people. So we generally stay at hotels more than we do B&Bs.
I prefer the B&Bs actually. Now, to that, let me touch on the youth hostels first of all. A youth hostel, if you're really trying to do things on a budget, and if you qualify to be in a youth hostel, I mean, they're not necessarily going to be interested in you staying there if you're 50. Although there are some programs I think provide housing for people who are trying to do world hike things, and they are, older people. A youth hostel is kind of like staying in a dormitory, like a college dorm. So it's very much a random encounter, up personal experience. You will run into other students and travelers, doing walkabout from all kinds of different parts of the world. And that can be really, really cool. That can be, you never know who you're going to meet in the common area, basically. Or you might form friendships with people who are from Germany or Scotland or Addis Ababa. And that can be really neat. I know friends who have basically done the youth hostel thing, and they still have friendships with the people that they met staying in those hostels.
It also depends on how social you are as well.
Yeah.
If you're more a stick-to-yourself kind of person, or wife and husband, than a youth hostel, or even...
Yeah, I'm mostly assuming a couple are not going to be staying in a youth hostel. But as a low bar, I want to mention it because it's a great budget option.
Yeah.
There are some B&Bs which will feel kind of like that. There are some B&Bs where the people have basically turned a townhouse or something into something like a micro hotel, where they have several rooms upstairs that they've turned into very makeshift, very bare bones kind of hotel rooms, and they've turned that. And this is actually a memory because one place we stayed in London, it was a B&B, but it was basically like a townhouse hotel, and the upper stories had little bedrooms, and then they had turned the basement level into a larger kitchen where they served you the classic English breakfast.
Yeah.
So that was cool, but it was also kind of meh aesthetically. But for a very affordable urban stay, it was good. The B&Bs, which I enjoyed the most, and always will, is actually, like you're saying, where it's a couple who have opened up their home, and they tend to be very social people. They really want to have
kinda
company.
have
They want to
to for
have
that.
guests. They want to hear your stories, and you should allow some time for that because in exchange of you telling them some of your life story, they're going to tell you things about the history of the local area or places you should go. Our favorite B&B, when we went, there were sheep right outside the cottage. It was literally a thatched roof cottage, and we were woken up in the morning by sheep bleating. And they sound like people pretending to be sheep. That's
Bleating, not bleeding.
bleating. No,
Yes.
bleeding. Yeah, that was
Slaughtering sheep outside our door.
It's
That was
slaughter time here.
spectacular.
For an extra fee, you can help. Here's a complimentary butcher knife. No, no, seriously, it was kind of funny because we had never heard actual sheep before. So we hear this noise. It sounds like people pretending to be sheep. It's like, wow, sheep sound like people pretending to be sheep. It's like mah, mah, and that's actually what they sound like. It was just kind of surreal. But these people pointed us towards the local pub. They told us the shortcuts to get places, and it was just a genuinely just a genuinely really friendly, homey experience. The one thing we haven't touched on, which is kind of an interesting new dynamic that splits the difference, of course, is Airbnbs.
Yes.
I've never personally used an Airbnb, so I can't give you any insight on them. But a lot of people swear by them anymore.
Yeah. When we went to Ireland, Kelly and I went to Ireland. We stayed at. It wasn't an Airbnb, but it kind of ish was.
Worked the
It was
same
like
way.
It was in County Clare. There was like 6 or 8 little like out in the middle of nowhere. Long dirt road to get to the place, and there was like 6 or 8 little houses in like with a shared parking lot in the middle. With cows around, all that kind of stuff, like way out in the middle of nowhere.
Nice.
So it was kind of Airbnb-esque, where we actually had to meet the owner there to give us the key. And since we usually go in the winter, it was literally, we were the only people there. So, which is cool, because it's very, very dark, very quiet, not a lot going on.
Yeah.
It was scary, because we were the only people there. If something went wrong, good luck.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
if you survive, you have good stories to tell your kids.
If she was going to kill me, that would have been the place to do it.
Yes, get all Agatha Christie on you. Yeah,
Exactly.
Cool. I had a thought, and I think I almost lost it. Back in my day when I was doing this, we made good advantage of the book a bed ahead service. Now, of course, I'm sure there's digital versions of doing that, and I'm sure Airbnb has similar functions. But you can literally not be sure, assuming you're doing a self-drive kind of a vacation, you can be entirely unsure where you're going to end up by the end of the day if you want, and just randomly drop a coin and say, we're going to go left and head towards that town, and you phone up using a directory that's provided, and they will tell you where all the B&Bs are in that area, and you can just literally call and say, hey, you got a free room? And you will find one. It might take a couple of phone calls, or in this day and age, probably web service stuff, but you'll find a berth somewhere, and it's incredibly liberating. You can basically just go to any town you want and just stop where you're ready. So.
See, for me, I'm much more regimented and planned. That would drive me nuts, not knowing where I'm going to be that night. I'm the exact opposite. I need to know ahead of time. I have a room in this hotel, because my mind would go to I really don't want to sleep in the back of the car, and if I can't find anything, that's what's going to happen.
I think chances are you will find stuff though. And
yes, but that doesn't quell my
okay
my OCD about it.
I can't do anything about your anxiety there. May I suggest a package tour?
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
And some more drinks.
It's know yourself before you travel is kind of I think the takeaway from this. And
absolutely.
Mapping out the places that are most important to you to go on the trip will help you either choose the loose options I'm talking about, or the more structured options that Rocky is mentioning.
Or even not necessarily structured, but to your point about if you have a hotel, you stay at you pick a hotel that is within driving distance of multiple things. So the first time we went across, we stayed in Sussex, and we could go to Glasgow, we could go to Edinburgh, we could go to Fort William and take day trips within an hour or so drive of where we wanted to stay.
Yeah.
So picking a centrally located hotel is part of a good plan for this kind of stuff.